When you are looking at something, do you see only light or do you see the object?
Well, the question of whether or not when you see something, you see only the light or you see the thing you're looking at.
One of the things I've been suggesting to my audiences, it's one of the rules in my book, is that you should tell the truth, or at least you shouldn't lie.
Here's what the God of Knowledge has to say about intelligence. Intelligence can be described as the ability to perceive or infer information and to retain it as knowledge to be applied to adaptive behaviors within an environment or context. That was pretty huge, but I think you can measure intelligence even simpler. It's basically when you're in Minecraft, you look at a tree, you think to chop it, you go there and you chop it. That's the whole idea. But sometimes when you're speedrunning, you look at a tree, you think not to chop it because there's treasure nearby. Why do you need that tree? And you just head straight for the treasure. Not everything you think about, you execute. What you did think about becomes a thought. So here's what that thought would comprise. The thought would comprise of an observation, a part of imagination, and a part of execution. Thoughts that are wired internally mainly comprise of imagination and none of the other two. But in reality, the observation and execution are just as important. The OI is what I'd like to call this framework. So that's how it looks from the outside, as a diagram. Your observation is fed to your imagination. It then becomes a response. Stopping to observe wider, taking more imagination time, and responding with zero hesitation is the best way to think. Or so you'd think. It's more complicated than that. Why? Well, just because you put a cookie in the oven longer doesn't mean you get a better cookie. There's a factor of dough, IQ, which I believe most IQ tests get wrong anyways. Why? Well, because of this. Observation and execution. In most of real life's problems, you have to observe and execute just as well as you imagine. A lot of us are carried by our imagination from our childhood that we forget that we have to observe and execute. So, I'm going to show you a problem that I found by going through a few trustworthy online IQ tests that a lot of people talked about. Now, we're going to try to solve it together. You see the patterns in the rows. Well, I reckon you're just not looking in the right place. This is more of an observation problem than it is about imagination at all. Why? Well, here's why. See, when you looked at this problem, the first thing you would have thought of would be shape patterns. It's not a shape pattern, it's a line pattern. So you were just supposed to observe the lines, and now you will start seeing what's really happening here. When the line goes down by 45 degrees and comes up by 45 degrees, a pattern is made. And thus, this option, which is option something which I put up on the video which I solved, you can take a look at that and observe why observation and execution are just as important. Now that you know what intelligence is, you'll be able to produce more intelligent thoughts. But if you learn the other factors that intelligence does depend on, you'll be able to have even more intelligent thoughts. Has this video helped you thus far? Well, if it has, I'd like to ask of you one small favor. You see, most of the people who watch these videos are unsubscribed, and I would like to ask of you to subscribe and hit the like button and put your opinions in the comment section. Because if you don't really interact with my videos, I don't really know their quality that well. So if you do, I can sure help get you better stuff pretty soon in the near future. Now back to the topic. Cardio and muscle training. I know that they do sound totally unrelated to the topic at hand, but they're actually very important to help you think better. Let me explain. So, let me give you a very simple analogy. So, think of some people's brains as like Lambo engines than like the normal ones. The normal ones, they take up less fuel and they produce lesser output. But the Lambo takes in more fuel and produces more output. But for the Lambo to produce more output, it's gonna need bigger valves to carry the bigger fuel, right? So, just like the Lambo needs a bigger valve for bigger fuel, you need bigger valves to carry your blood to your bigger brain. Okay, that is the whole idea behind this. And there's also another reason. Cardio reduces your resting heart rate a lot, so it makes you a lot calmer as a person. So you'll be able to observe things a lot better and judge things a lot better. And what about muscle, you'd ask? Well, the answer is very simple. Muscle helps you retain the intelligence that you've built over the course of your old years as well. Why? How, you ask? It's mostly a research thing. Say you were an athlete in your childhood and you were an athlete in your early 20s to 30s, not really a professional one, but some athlete, you would have retained more intelligence than the average Joe who sits in an IT job. When I said that a response or a thought would only comprise of observation and then imagination and then execution, I lied. I lied to make things simpler, but now I'm gonna show you the whole truth. It's basically oime and not oi, like the people of Australia would like to call it. So, oime. We're going to talk about oime right now. What's the M? M is memory. Memory is where your imagination takes its roots to associate different random shit from, and it creates the images of the ideas you want to express via that. It's a more efficient way than starting from scratch. Your brain can also do the starting from scratch thingy, but it's sort of bad at it as compared to the associating thingy. And when I said that you go linearly from imagination to execution from an observation, I also lied there. I lied to make things simpler. But now I'll show you the real truth, the whole truth. So these are the configurations I've put up on screen, and out of all of these, you can pick any and you can make many more, and you can also use those chains of thought. You can analyze thought deeper with these diagrams, and through that, use them better. So, out of these configurations, there's one in specific that I really love to talk about, but I'd save that for the next chapter. Right now, let's talk about our new component, which is memory. Now, there's a fat chance that the memory you're thinking about and the one I'm gonna talk about are totally different. So listen carefully. The memory I'm referring to is a collection of experiences. A collection of experiences that will help you get through problems. So the idea is as follows. A lot of problems you might think are really specific, but they're not. They're actually really general. So if you take a look at some field of interest, let me say art. Abstract art is basically philosophy. And philosophy is not basically abstract art, but that's a different discussion. So, like that, love is marketing, and then making a YouTube channel is basically making a business with a different currency, which is attention. And once you've learned all of these, you can actually look into your experiences and use those experiences to imagine stuff. What I'm calling experiences can also be thought of as algorithms that you use to solve something. Like, how do I get more views on a video? Include keywords in the title, could be one. Include a lot of intriguing ideas in the thumbnail. All of those are, ways to make a video grow more on YouTube. We've talked about one sort of useful memory, but there's also another. And that'll be the last chapter of this video. Before that, I want to talk about some another. Flow is a state of immense concentration, and I'll teach you how to get into it pretty soon. But now, let me tell you something. Almost everybody has used it among the greats. You see, when a painting that's really cool is being made, say something like The Scream, that's really famous, the artist is in flow. He does not see the strokes as separate from his ideas. He does not see the ideas as separate from his memory. To him, it's just coming to him in one single go. And through his memory, through his imagination, and through his strokes, he lays down his masterpiece. And that's how The Scream might have come together. Sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? Now let me teach you how you can get into flow. Let's start simple. Here's the first step. So, when you're getting into flow, the first thing you've got to do is to stop hesitating in your thought. Or just let the inner critic out of your brain. Kick him out. That's what you've got to do. The idea is as follows. The inner critic is basically this voice that says, "Hey, paragraph 1, sentence 3. Shouldn't you have used an at or an on there instead of that in?" The inner critic is not really the bad guy, but he needs to be kicked out because of this. If you start doubting in the middle of your thoughts, you will lose the thought chains that you started, and that is more important because that will let you finish more work within the same amount of time than if you let your inner critic sit on it and shit on it. You got me? Yeah. So all you've got to do is imagine to the best of your knowledge and do without any question of the inner critic inside. So, step 2. Negate the distractions or learn to negate the distractions. What I'm trying to say is, if you're in a state of flow, you're going at a task with full speed. Now you hear this engine sound. That was a very bad impression, but you get the idea, right? Get this weird sound of an engine, and you're like, "Ooh, what's that?" And you're out of your thought chain, which you were supposed to continue. Now, what you can do to stop this from happening is to basically get into a place with no noise or wear noise cancellation earphones. That is what negating the distractions is. But learning to negate the distractions is this cool Ninjago dialogue.
But how do I do that, Uncle? When there is no calm outside of you, you must find the calm inside of you.
Something like this that Master Wu says to Lloyd. If you find that inner calm, you'll be able to continue with your flow state even if there is external disturbance. There are actually only 2 steps, but a third step you could add would be practice. You get better with flow over practice. First you can be in it for 30 minutes, next it's 2 hours, next it's 3 hours, and before you know it, you can go at it without sleep. I haven't been able to achieve those levels yet. I'm still at the hour or half an hour, but yeah, let me share that. So that was about it for the configuration that I wanted to talk about. Now for that other kind of memory that's really useful, let's get into that, right here and right now. Have you seen it in the movies when people try to solve ridiculously huge portions of a problem inside their own head and they actually achieve it? That's actually possible if you have this kind of memory. It's called working memory. A lot of people say that the working memory basically filters what needs to get in and what doesn't need to, and it just pushes the part which you need in. But I think it's more like a funnel. You see, when you are essentially thinking something, you remember what you have thunk for a brief period of time. And when you have thunk something, like a number sequence, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 8, 7, 6. I can repeat it now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 8, 7, 6. That's because it's stored deeper in my funnel because it was my thought. But if it was an observation of something, like some number written somewhere, you can only get it in if it's at the speed of your thought. So if you read faster, you'll be able to keep it in faster. And if you think faster, you can use your working memory better to solve future problems. Now, let's get back to how we can make the working memory bigger. You see, the working memory depends on a chemical inside of our head that is also responsible for motivation. So, basically, if you let yourself be bored for a really long time, you suddenly get this motivation to do some shit, right? That is the logic we're going to apply here. So, you shouldn't really involve yourself in a lot of pleasure-ish activities, and in a little bit of days' time, you'll be able to remember more, better, because your brain just sets the default of your working memory at a higher level. For the most part, that was the end of this video, but I've planned to give you some additions which I thought would enhance the overall thought experience. Now, let me get into those. First of all, for the flow thought configuration, what you can do is try to have a sort of focus music or focus rhythm inside of your head and play it. For me, it's Wonderstop, C418 Sweden, Gibran Alosir music, and all of these things. Or it could just be something like the Amida Nabutsu that's put forward in Demon Slayer. I don't really know if that works, but music of a certain pattern does seem to help if I'm having trouble focusing. So that was one thing. The next is to always listen to others. Even if your ego says it's wrong or that they're dumb, just tell it. Even if they're dumb, they have a different knowledge base than me, so I could gain something. And if you listen and observe correctly, you'll know if they're actually thought out the thought before they speak it. And if they have, you have accessed more smartness than you have inside of your head. That's cool, isn't it? Know that there are no facts but only interpretations. This helps you accept it when you're wrong faster and helps you learn and adapt faster. If you know that, you'll also attempt to interpret why and how somebody has come to the conclusion that they have. Okay, now for the last tidbit, I thought I'd save the best. And here's the best tidbit. Have a theory of everything and try to constantly keep adding stuff to it. Think of it as like a giant tree or a giant mind map out of which you can branch out into tinier ideas. You can connect the tinier ideas in your head, and when you forget one of those ideas, through the connection, you can actually get back to them. It's really efficient, and people like Jordan Peterson have talked about using it. You should try to maintain this mind map in your head for as much things as you can so that you'll remember a lot. That's what I do. That was about it for this video. Like, totally. And with that, we'll leave each other with a fist bump, and we'll meet some other day, some other place. We'll meet again.
Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. We'll meet again, don't know where.